morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise Today. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Yes, it's Tuesday, a beautiful Tuesday morning here in the Federal Capital Territory. Good morning and welcome. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Yeah, the weather's still pretty chilly here in the capital city, and it's just about 28 degrees centigrade. But I don't know about other cities like where the Idonre Hills is situated. A beautiful scenery, nonetheless. Don't take our words for it. Have a look yourselves. I mean, you could visit it too if you think you should make out that time for it, because it's one of those lovely places in different parts of this country where this picturesque scenery can do a lot to your mindset. Because I tell you, well, you're battered on every side. Sometimes you need to latch onto whatever you can to get your blood pressure down. So why not this? This is not FCT, by the way, guys. Don't forget.
No, it isn't. You know, sitting pretty at over 3,000 feet in Idonre town in Ondo State. You have this set of hills, this landscape you're looking at, you know, forming what they call the Idonre Hills. And from what we know, what we have been told before now, you know, that the habitation used to actually be on the hill. So if you go to the hill, you'll find that there are people still living there, you know, very elderly people who can tell you about the history of that particular community. Wow. They have shrines, they have old grinding stones, they have, you know, you can actually see signs of life. Even if you look very clearly, you might even see footprints in the hills, and you wonder, how did that form there? But it is what it is. Right now, we now have the town of Idonre at the foot of the hills, but I do know that, you know, not quite a number of ceremonies are still performed from time to time at the very top of the hills. So this is what we are showing you this morning. It certainly will take, you know, it certainly will be worth your while, you know, to see how you can schedule time to experience Nigeria. Sincerely, Chamberlain, I really cannot wait for rail, you know, our rail transport infrastructure to reach many important cities of this country, to make it easier for people to be able to commute between, you know, one city and to the other. Only recently, you know, we had a old schools students association in my secondary school, and quite a number of people were able to make it to Abuja. When we asked how did they come, they said a lot of people came because there was rail infrastructure and they could come by train. So imagine what it will be like during the season now when schools will be out. Maybe parents will not have so much to do on their plate because businesses might be shutting down. What will it be like for people to just take a train and say they're going to Akure from wherever it is, Lagos to Akure, Abuja to Akure, Kaduna to Akure? You know, perhaps, of course, there'll be stops on the way. When people can just experience their country, I do sincerely look forward to that day when, you know, sites like this will not just be a thing of, will not be just on the wish list of people. It will be things that they can actually accomplish, you know, realistically.
That's why, I mean, when leaders have the people's interest at heart in developing infrastructure, you get those kinds of results. When they look at the real issues and not just focus on some of those high-sounding projects, which eventually become elephant projects, as we've highlighted a lot of them, which leaves you wondering, did they start this project so that certain people just get the monies off it and leave the project there? If not, why do we have a litany of those abandoned projects? Well, that said, it shouldn't discourage you from visiting any of those sites, and the ministries of culture and tourism also leveraging on these kinds of scenery will be lovely. Okay, so the Vice President made a statement yesterday, and I mean, he's been, lots of reactions have been coming through about his statement about the leader of the British Labour Party, Kemi Badenoch, and Conservative Party. And so I think it was very interesting, the perspective that the VP took. I'm not sure. Can we listen to it now?
The federal government of Nigeria, under the able and capable leadership of His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, remains resolute in addressing migration challenges. Migrants are the source of life in all societies. Rishi Sunak, the former British Prime Minister, is originally from India. A very brilliant young man. He never denigrated his nation of ancestry, nor poured venoms on India. Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the British Labour or Conservative Party. We are proud of her, in spite of her efforts at denigrating her nation of origin. She is entitled to her own opinions. She has even every right to remove the Kemi from her name. But that does not underscore the fact that the greatest black nation on earth is the nation called Nigeria.
You can tell by the applause right there how people felt about it, and that applause resonates across the length and breadth of this country, even beyond, as a matter of fact. And so there you go. But of course, we know that that's not the last we're going to hear of this. But importantly, it was important for the VP to make that point.
I don't think we're about to start a diplomatic row now, you know. Well, they're not the party in power, are they? I mean, they're certainly not the party in power, so...
even if they were,
some people will say, what sort of politics? Maybe she's just trying to play the politics of...
So she's going to be accepted?
You know, exactly, to show where my allegiance,
where
my allegiance truly lies, and to tell us. Because don't forget that the Vice President is not the first person to make reference to Kemi Badenoch. Yeah, Badenoch is how how her surname is pronounced. And I remember that our sister program, Morning Brief, had the DG of NIDCOM, a Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, on their program, and they asked, "Oh, so are you in touch with Kemi Badenoch?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, we've tried to reach out to her a few times, but it doesn't seem like she's interested in connecting with the country of her birth, of her origin. But if she changes her mind, we're still here, I think it's very interesting that the Vice President gave the example of Rishi Sunak, who was Prime Minister just a short moment ago, and how, he held India in high esteem. He even visited the country as Prime Minister. So there'll be questions as to why does our own have to be different? Because at every turn that the leader of the Conservative Party has, gotten, she has, made it very clear that she ran away from Nigeria. I do not want this country to be like the country I ran away from. And there are all manner of talks around that. It's not going down well with Nigerians. And while I can understand, how our pride has been hurt, because to be very honest, whether or not you like it, there are people who still love their country. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect, as a matter of fact. And certainly a lot of things can be much better. There are a lot of things that we wish were better. We certainly do not like our underwear, our dirty underwear, being washed in the front of the British public. We like to keep our matters, to ourselves. Bad as it is, that's just how it is. But I think that this should also give us room to think, again, that,
key parts.
Yeah, it should give us room to reflect as leaders, to say, this is what we're doing, to say, to turn the narrative. Because right now, it's all well and good for the Vice President to say that she's entitled to her opinion as she is, and to say she can very well remove the name Kemi from her name, because the way she's going about it, she might as well remove it. She might as well not want anything to do with us. It's fine. However, I think beyond saying that, we need to be able to show that we as a people are serious about ourselves, and when we're unhappy about, the reputation that we have out there, and we're working on it. And so while he was talking about, what we're doing to, take immigration very seriously, I think there needs to be more than just what we're doing. There needs to be concrete. It needs to be what we have done so far. We need to be able to enumerate. This is what we're doing to fight corruption in this country. This is what we're doing to make lives better for our people. This is what we're doing. If people, you cannot tie anyone down. If people choose to travel out of the country, it's their free right to do so. But it shouldn't be because their home is so bad that they cannot stay at home. That shouldn't be the reason why our people should seek to travel. It should be because maybe they want to experience another part of the world. So all well and good that, you know, we're pushing back now, and I hope she gets the message. Nonetheless, I think the buck really stops at the table of the president, the vice president, governors, and everybody who feels very strongly to say, look, this narrative must change so that people who leave this country and become something somewhere will not keep talking about the country that they ran away from.
And if I could stretch that a little bit, whether or not she gets the message, we also need to perhaps not lose sight of the fact that we need to reflect on a number of things. I mean, this country can give you some sucker punch. It can give you uppercuts. It can frustrate you.
Can say that again.
Oh boy,
over and over again.
We know that. And we also do know that our leaders never stop seeking foreign direct investment. But, you know, perhaps it should make us also look in the mirror. Let's look inwards and ask ourselves some very, very fundamental questions. The way we do things in this country. First is that, look, all of these leaders who are constantly seeking the validation of countries like India, London and the West, constantly seeking validation from them for you to put in one policy or the other. You have to go there and rethink. Because, look, when the chips are down, this is what it will come to. And people always talk about, oh, this country got us where we are today. This is why we're where we were. Look, then let's pick up the gauntlet and say, you know what? Let's also look inwards and make sure we grow from within. How do we do that? We can't keep playing politics of ethnicity. The best of us are not coming up. You frustrate the system that will allow the best of us come up and channel the right energies and lead this country, and then we'll take our pride of place in the Committee of Nations. We have to go back and look inwards. If we don't let our institutions really work well, certain narrative, they will talk down on us. So, yes, sometimes we need this kind of wake-up calls, you know, to look inwards and say, you know what, no, we have to change certain things about ourselves and make sure that whoever goes anywhere else, if they need to denigrate us, they will think twice. So it's going to be a long, hard road, because tomorrow you may still see them going to Chatham House to go and find out, what do we need to do? I need to be president. What can you do for me? I will serve you. We may still see them going to France to go and say, well, even though Mali, Chad, Burkina Faso, Nigeria may have left ECOWAS, but we want you here. We may still, look, we could go on and on. But importantly, it's good that this kind of things are happening. Let ideas contend, and we hope and pray, even though hope is on a strategy, that certain things will, you know, kick us behind, and then let the best come out and say, listen, enough of this narrative. Let the best of us come out here. And when we go seeking those investments, improve local investments. Let investments thrive. Create good environment here, and watch and see how Nigerians can soar. If you could do it with football, it tells you the principle, if applied to other areas and other sectors, we will equally thrive. All right, that's it. Let's take you through some of the papers this morning. Well, here are some of the papers we've got for you this morning. Blueprint newspaper. Growing negative perception, not good for judiciary. And that is ascribed to the Chief Justice of Nigeria. Some of the writers here says, self-reflection, strategic planning key. Dongban Mensem, our judiciary has proud history of dispensing justice without fear, favor. Ascribed to the AGF. FCTA will continue support to the judiciary. Ascribed to Wike. All of that you find on the front page here today. Well, beneath that lead story, let's tackle corruption from the top. Ascribed to Obasanjo, we need unity to confront menace. And that is ascribed to Abbas. The Daily Times, affirmative action for women, a necessary corrective measure, says Abbas. And then this Nigeria, Lukurawa terror group in disarray, driven to Niger Republic, says Army Chief Oluyede. There will soon be history, as Niger is also hitting them from their end. And then beneath that, Edo Tribunal sitting marred by chaos, thuggery. Ajayi files petition to void Ayedatiwa's victory in Ondo. Nigerian News Direct focuses on insecurity. We are hitting them hard. Lukurawa terror group will soon be history, ascribed to Chief of Army Staff. And then the Nigerian Tribune is focusing on the 2025 budget. MDA's risk zero allocation. Senate panel warns them for shunning invitations failure to account for 2024 releases places NNPCL, RMAFC, NATI on the alert. And then they also have this narrative at the bottom strip. Fight against corruption should begin from the top. Ascribed to Obasanjo. And then you've got the business day as well. Cardoso's first year sees Naira rally amid stubborn inflation, the paper reports this morning. The Vanguard newspaper, mounting e-waste triggers health crisis in children. Well, some of the writers here, 70% of children near recycling areas severely affected. Nigeria's e-waste challenge at alarming stage. 60,000 tons of second-hand electronics flow in annually. 90% improperly disposed, the paper reports this morning. And those are some of the dailies here today. Okay, so there you go. What stands out, what sticks out for you, Albert?
Well, I've been looking quite a little at the papers this morning, and I think that we can as well just leave it to viewers out there to decide what it is that stands out for them this morning. Really, because
we have a lot here. Judiciary is there, but it's part of what we're going to also take a look at this morning. So quite a number of things. And don't forget to Mr. Rotimi is also out there. So today is December 10th. All of what was planned today, what is going on? So what do my right say? So don't worry, just hand in a minute, we will be back. Okay, well, that is not Mr. Ezeala. That is the president of Nigerian Bar Association, whom we have a couple of days ago. So maybe someone still needs to wake up and smell the coffee. Well, Mr. Ezeala, please, let's see you guys. Can we see him so that people don't get confused about who is what?
Maybe it's a semblance.
Mr. Ezeala, good morning and thank you for joining us on the program today. Oh, okay. So I think it's frozen. So we're gonna get him back in that. Well, there you can see him, but clearly that is not. Oh dear. Sometimes. So you see what Mr. Fabalala might feel if somebody feels. If you know my character and somebody say, can imagine how this might be, on the lighter notes, really.
Yeah.
So, but yes, we're going to bring him back and ensure that happens. So,
yes, but there's been plenty of discussion, around the judiciary. I'm glad that we, Mr. Ezeala is here to discuss this with us this morning.
Yeah.
But only recently, in fact, as a matter of fact, yesterday, the CJN was talking about how the judiciary needs to improve its own its reputation. So I think that we have that report on standby. If the control room can get that to us, that will be very helpful. Okay. Well, it looks like.
All right. Well, we're going to eventually get that report so that we can at least just get him to get some perspectives about that report, because it's not the first time you hear officials, maybe from the bench, even the bar as well, speaking about the perception, the image of the judiciary and how certain things need to happen. So we'll call for that report in a moment. But Mrs. Ezeala, good morning and thank you for joining us on the program today. Can you hear us?
I can't hear anything.
Okay, so we'll sort that out. I can hear you though. Say again?
No, I can't hear you, and I think it's from your station.
Okay, so we'll sort that because I can hear you clearly right here.
And I am not on mute. No, I can't hear you. Let them. I think I was hearing earlier, but I can't hear you again.
Okay, that's odd because we can hear you loud and clear here. Okay, so we'll sort that out. And then there's a report which, let's hope you can hear this. Let's set the scene with this one. Just listen carefully to what was said in this particular meeting, and then we'll take it from there.
I can't hear you.
Room of the Court of Appeal is filled to capacity for the annual conference for justices of the Court of Appeal. The ceremony brings together justices of the Appellate Court, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, retired Chief Justices, some ministers, and senior advocates of Nigeria. The Chief Justice of Nigeria tasked the judicial officers to change the dwindling perception of the judiciary.
There is a growing negative perception of the judiciary. We must all individually and collectively work towards changing this negative perception. We look into genuine complaints. We will also stand to support our judges and justices to make sure that where frivolous allegations are made, that there are consequences.
The conference provides a platform for introspection, knowledge sharing, and strategic planning amongst judges, especially amidst allegation of corruption within the justice system.
Justices occupy a position of paramount importance in the administration of justice, and with their decisions exerting a profound impact on individuals, communities, and society at large. Nevertheless, despite our expertise and experience, we are not immune to the limitations inherent in human decision-making, including errors, biases, and prejudices.
Allegations are first made in the social media to the world at large before complainants think fit, if at all, to refer matters to the National Judicial Council. The public and the press pass judgment on these allegations, and all that the complainants appear to require from the National Judicial Council is to rubber stamp those conclusions and punish the judges.
The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, emphasized the constitutional separation of powers, highlighting the challenges facing judicial independence.
My lords, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we must acknowledge, and I do, that challenges to judicial independence persist. These challenges can come from various or multifaceted sources, including but not limited to political interference, public opinion especially perpetrated on social media, and even well-intentioned efforts to improve the justice system. It is, however, imperative that we remain vigilant and steadfast in our defense of judicial independence.
The conference is an avenue for judicial officers to deliberate on issues affecting the justice system and prefer solutions as the court gears towards the 2024-2025 legal year.
Okay, so there you have it, some of the background to what is going on and expectations from the judiciary. So, Mr. Zala, so let's get on with this one. I hope you did hear that report. So, at this point in time where you see the talk about improving the image of the judiciary, and this, coincidentally, with what's going on about the defamation case between Dele Rotimi and Afe Babala. Let me ask you first of all, do you think that these or some of them are veiled narratives or responses concerning that particular matter that is ongoing?
Yes, I think, this time the judiciary will be struggling to extricate itself from the problems that are now created. And then when you go back to criminal defamation, these were the things that the colonial masters introduced to gag our bid for independence. So it's been in the laws for a very long time. And even individuals, private individuals like you and I have been using it to oppress people who believe that are undertrodden. But when you look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and you look at African Charter on Human and People's Rights, you will see that that law has become obsolete. And that was why Lagos State government, for instance, had to remove it from the statute book. The state also did. And but it's very unfortunate that some states are still having such laws, or that somebody, for that matter, is still trying to use such law to gag the freedom of any Nigerian. There was a recent case in Burkina Faso, one cont against Burkina Faso, where the African Court on Human and People's Rights issued its judgment, and among which it ruled that imprisonment for defamation violates the right to freedom of expression. So when you look at all these, you see that we should move a bit faster. The judiciary sometimes are gagged. Now you move from criminal defamation, you go into cyberbullying. What is cyberbullying? You know, something written in a book, presented to the public. Why don't you see him, even if it's worth 50 billion? So I think the moment we start, and I was thinking that the proper thing would have been, if you have influence in the judiciary, get the matter to move as fast as possible. And you get judgment if you prove your case. But going about trying to cause more problem in the system is something that is antithetical to the system we have. If you look at the Chapter 2 of the Nigerian Constitution, which wholly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is what we are celebrating today, so the state policies should be geared towards respecting the rights of every citizen, no matter whether the person is rich or whether the person is poor or who the person is. That is my take on it. So the judiciary, I think they will start waking up, because you see the speed with which the high courts decided to, give bail. So we'll get there anyway.
Wait, you think when you say you see the speed with which that was granted, because today, being the 10th, was the day that they had planned the protest about that matter. And incidentally too, World Human Rights Day. So does that then mean that these chaps actually listen and they know what they're doing when you say that the speed with which it was granted?
Now, you see, when we sleep over our rights, the government or the security agencies will trample on it. Yes, there is threat of protest because people are waking up. If we wake up tomorrow to say, and we're all united, whether the North or the South, and say we want good governance, we want the provisions of Chapter 2, as also we had the precursors of African Charter on Human Rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. If we say today that we want it to be enforced, you will see that the government will wake up. If we say we have a right to development, because what are all these? Now, what is today the slogan for human rights? What are we celebrating today?
Our rights, our future, right now.
Yes, the theme of human rights today is our rights, our future, right now. Right now.
That would have been a perfect fit for the protest.
Yeah, sure. It's just for the protest. And Nigerians are trying to jump in and say, right now, give us our rights. Look at what happened in Ghana. The election took place. The government that was unpopular was toppled through the right channel. The people wanted their rights right now. They have a right to development. They have a right to their future. These are our rights. These are fundamental rights, and nobody should try to take it away from us.
So, but we're told in the well, I don't want to say Charter of Human Rights now, but when people are teaching people about human rights and how you have a right to this, a right to that, a right to life, a right to, speak, a right to freedom of association, a right to movement, a right to live anywhere in your country, etc., etc. People are also taught that, when your right stops is where the right of another person begins. And that's where, that's where we start to speak of violation of human rights. And in recent times, there has been more awareness of how, violations don't just become, they're not just physical. Violations can also be mental. Violations can be emotional, especially when they're talking, within the context of abuse. Only recently, I think we're concluding the 16 days of activism around sexual and gender-based violence. And these are some of the things that come up. So would you say that, there is a growing awareness? Because this case now that, you raised as an example, is becoming, it does appear that it could be a landmark case for lawyers, because it has caused a whole plethora of debates among lawyers as to where does somebody's right start and where does another person's right begin, or where does somebody else's right stop and where does another person's right begin. In your own assessment, where would you say this fine line has been drawn? Yes, somebody has, freedom of speech. But if somebody else is affected by your freedom of speech, should that...
No freedom after speech.
Should that speech be allowed? These are the questions. I don't know. What is your own assessment? Where do you stand?
No, that is why we have, if it is civil law, we have the law of on defamation, libel, slander, for that matter. We go to courts. When there is now judgment against the person to pay you damages or to retract what he said or to do publication, these are all there for you. So, but resorting to imprisonment, restricting the person from movement, and remember that there can be punitive measures that can take within those civil rights. So why should there be imprisonment if your right is infringed? You already have a remedy. Whatever happens in anything, even if there is murder, maybe careless or reckless murder, there can be a remedy. So if there is a remedy, why don't you follow that remedy? Why don't you follow that civil remedy? Why would you want to restrict the person's freedom? Now, if the matter is in court, for instance, and the person continues with the defamation, because there will now be contempt of court, which will now send the person to prison. Or if there is an injunction from the court to say, do not continue with this. You see, there is now disobedience court order, so you can be restrained. So when somebody has spoken, I am talking now, somebody now says, oh, that it's criminal defamation. Why? Why should it be criminal defamation? Many lawyers do it, but then that does not make it right. Even if I do it today, it doesn't make it right. What is right is that, and that is why the court should also rise to the occasion. Once somebody writes petition against you, criminal defamation, and you're able to come out and you're detained, particularly if you're detained beyond the number of hours or days that you should be, there should be a remedy against the instigator. So, but we must start taking things the right way. We have seen in Europe, we have seen in the United States, this is a verbal assault on you, or this is a libelous assault on you. This is a defamatory thing written in ink. If you remember, during the time of Nnamdi Azikiwe, he was imprisoned, yes, and this is what we are talking about, that it is wrong to follow that in this modern time.
Okay. So
where you're right, like to your question, where the other one also, yes, my right to have my character not assassinated is there. Your right to say anything you want to say is also there. But when you say it and it assassinates my character, you'll be ready to pay me for my character. And it may also include that you should retract and publish in the newspapers that what you said was wrong. Once it's determined by the courts that what you said was wrong. If you send me to prison, for instance, does it make it right? I still need to tell people that, yes, I didn't say it, believing it to be true. I don't know whether you get it. Prison does not solve the problem. What solves the problem is making sure that I pay to the last kobo.
Oh, I don't know, because the argument amongst lawyers has been that, okay, this alleged defamation was committed in Lagos. The book was published in Lagos. Lagos no longer criminalizes defamation it's a civil matter. But they claim that it's not the same in Ekiti, where the person who was allegedly defamed resides. So I don't know. How do you think that is? I know you've already given a perspective, but in this particular matter now, where I don't know whether you said that Ekiti does not also recognize criminal defamation, but you did mention a number of states, and what we hear from lawyers is that Ekiti defamation is still under let's say criminal law. It's a matter of criminality. Which jurisdiction should have taken precedence?
And well, number one is whether the point is that Ekiti doesn't have it in their criminal law, that I can't say with all certainty. But whether it has it or not, it becomes a law that is a nullity. If they have it, it's a law that is a nullity because it offends the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution. Because the Nigerian Constitution has adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, has also adopted the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. So if there is any law that is inconsistent, any law of the state, of any state for that matter, that is inconsistent with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, or that is inconsistent with the Act of the National Assembly, to the extent of that inconsistency, that law is null and void. So there is no more argument whether Ekiti has it or not. The argument now is even if Ekiti has it, that law is null and void. And that is why if they had allowed the process to go up, if somebody brings it from Ekiti, if somebody brings up that law from Ekiti, it will be an opportunity for the higher courts to nullify that such law, especially when the lawyer in question cites the provisions of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. We have the enforcement of fundamental human rights provisions, which in itself incorporates the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, also incorporates the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So what are we talking about again? It's just to go there and quash that law, assuming it's there. Or in any state where it is, just go and quash the law.
Okay, but I want to ask you, because you said we've adopted all of this Universal Declaration, African Charter on Human Rights, which are, laudable things that we have, and we've also, incorporated it into our laws. But we know that, when some of these things are adopted and, incorporated into Nigerian law, we subscribe to these, declarations. We know that we still have the challenge of, I'm looking for the word now, but for lack of a better word, localization. So, for instance, you still have states having to adopt and do their own versions of those laws. Clearly, Lagos State has done its own, and there is no question whatsoever about that. Take, for instance, this sexual and gender-based violence, which is something that has been on for a while, which was adopted through the VAP Act. We still had a situation whereby a number of states refused to domesticate that particular act until a campaign was embarked upon, and we saw a number of states begin to adopt what it is that Nigeria federally had adopted. So don't we have to also seek or reach a place where states domesticate this adoption of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as we have all now subscribed to federally?
Yes, this is where many of us are missing the likes of Honorable Justice Kayode Esho, Justice of the Supreme Court as he was, Honorable Justice Okuta, and many others of that line. I am sure that if these issues get up to the Supreme Court and we have such points, they will declare the laws of those states null and void as it regards these areas. Because do you really need some of these laws to be promulgated? Do you really need positive law to enact these ones? No. You have the Constitution. You have the things that support you. So what do you need if you talk about gender violence? What else do you want? If there is no such provision in the local enactment or in the state enactment, you go into the federal enactment. And then remember that criminal matters and the likes are also within the concurrent list. Now, in Nigeria, what do we operate? We operate the exclusive legislative list, we operate the concurrent list, and we have the residual list. So any matter that is within the exclusive list is only within the purview of the National Assembly. And when a matter is in the concurrent legislative list, it means either the national government, this time the federal government, or the state can enact laws on it. And when the national government enacts law on such issue, it takes precedence over whatever the states will have. So it's a question of getting our judiciary lawyers trying to pursue it from that angle. So if you don't have such laws in the states, as long as, and the states did not do anything, these federal laws are supposed to fill the gap. And even if where you have it in the states, but it's not properly done, to the extent in which the state law is inconsistent with the federal law takes precedence over the state law. These issues are not in the residual list. And besides, if there is an enactment of the international community of which we are signatory to, we are bound, whether it's a state, whether as a country. Once you have signed, you are bound. And you cannot say when Nigeria is bound, a state is not bound. A state is a constituent of the federation. So you cannot say, oh, Nigeria has signed, is their business. If we don't enact it, we don't enact it. I think it's timorous souls within the bench that will say, oh, no, we don't have it.
Why then do we speak of domestication? And this is not, this is taking it away from, the Dele Farotimi case now. But I'm just looking at the fact that, there was a huge campaign last year to get a lot more states. It was almost a game of name and shame, for states that had not signed up to the VAP Act. Why did we have to embark on such a campaign if it was taken for granted that as long as we have passed these laws and National Assembly has passed it, every state should simply subscribe to it? Those laws were binding on the state, but we had a situation where we still had to get the states to sign up to these laws and, remove whatever old laws they had in the states. Where is the place of domestication? What does that even mean within our federal context?
Sometimes some lawyers will say there is a little knowledge gap in all aspects of Nigeria, whether it's in the judiciary, whether it's within the legal profession, or anywhere else, we have a knowledge gap. If you have enforcement provisions as enacted or as provided by the Supreme Court or by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, there, which incorporates the African Charter and also incorporates the Universal Declaration and incorporates any positive law as enacted, which Nigeria is a signatory to. All you need to do is to get to court. The state doesn't have the law. The lawyer goes to court under the enforcement of fundamental rights. And what the lawyer does is to cite these laws, and it will be binding. The judges are supposed to enforce it mutatis mutandi. And that is all. Yeah, like I said, it's just a matter of, we are campaigning because of some of the people we have in the judiciary, especially at the magistracy level. So that is all, because they will say, where is it in our own law? They do not understand. But then some of this, you don't need to continue with the magistrates. You go to the High Court, because if your right is being if your right is being trampled upon, enforcement of fundamental rights can only be brought before the superior courts, which is High Courts, Federal High Courts, or any of them. So once you go there and say gender-related violence, once you go there and say sexually related violence, or any of those ones, and the state doesn't have it, just go to the Federal High Court, use the enforcement of your rights, and you get your relief. The relief you need, you just get it. But the only thing is that, like I say, we don't want to go through all this. We just want to set our mind. But why would even a state, knowing that this law is supposed to apply in this day, why would it not adopt it? These are the type of governments, these are the type of governors, these are the type of legislature we have in various states. Legislature that will come in, all they are interested in is what type of vehicle will be given to me, what type of allocation will be given to us. That is all. Tell me why a member of an assembly will not sponsor those bills to have it as laws of those states, knowing fully well that if it's there, and knowing fully well that it will be a bit more difficult for citizens maybe to go to high courts to get it, declared for that state. And even when it's declared, somebody will say it's only binding on the parties within that one, which is wrong. Once a high court declares it, it becomes a law of that state, whether the legislature has enacted it or not. That's our understanding of the law. Somebody may want to prove me wrong.
Okay.
But Once it's fine.
So help a lot of people also speak to understanding of the law. Yes, yesterday, part of what you also referenced in passing, Mr. Delerusimi has been granted 50 million naira bail. He's supposed to submit his passport. In that case, that was filed against him. Also, as we did see at the Federal High Court in Ado-Ekiti by the IGP. So that has got a lot of tongues wagging up until this morning. Several people don't understand it because now that video, which as a result of which went viral while he was arrested. So you see people commenting saying, now they're asking that why is it that Mr. Delerusimi was granted bail bond of 50 million for this kind of case? And then two things, they also now started tweeting pictures of Mr. Rotimi in cuffs, and then they referenced the former Kogi State governor who was not in cuffs. They say they don't understand it. So could you explain to them or to everyone who's listening, why does one have to be in cuffs and the other not in cuffs? In fact, they think that the other has a more serious case or question to answer, but is not in cuffs.
I think it's the police that can answer that question, because the other one is EFCC, which seems to be a bit more reasonable. You have no business putting anybody in cuffs, especially when you do not reasonably believe that the person will be harmful to others or the person will not run away. Why would you put a legal practitioner in cuffs for such a matter? So it doesn't accord with reason, you know. So whether it's the former governor or Brother Dele, none of them should be in cuffs. But it is an evidence of a failed system. It is one of the symptoms, in fact, the gross symptom of a failed system, a failed state, no longer a failing state. Ordinarily, when this type of thing happens and the police does this type of thing, the IG of police should be able to call on those who that have done this to discipline them. Why should this be? Can you explain why a citizen, anybody for that matter, it's only when there are issues of murder, armed robbery, that is when you should put people in handcuffs. Once there is no issue of violence, it's so that, because what you're doing is the crime is such serious. If it's armed robbery, murder, the crime is so serious that the person may want to escape. Now, the issue of 50 million, I mean, he is not expected, or the person taking him on bail is not expected to deposit 50 million. The only person, is supposed to post bond for 50 million to say, oh, if he runs away, I'm going to give you 15 million. That is it. So even though still I believe that the judge that issued 50 million is still on the high side. I mean, this type of thing, he should be granted bail on self-recognition. Why will he run away?
So,
two things. Looking for him, he's been around.
Two things on that matter. For the cuffs, what do we need to do? Because this is not the first, again, that this kind of narratives are coming through. We've seen this before, and yet it happened again. Does anything need to be done differently, or change the statutes, or spell some things out expressly to determine who and when one can be in court? Because if we keep leaving it at the discretion of the police, this kind of things might come up again.
No, I think but the lawyers know what to do. I think the lawyer should specifically sue the police for putting him on cuffs. Let the police explain why, how, what is the yardstick. Yes, somebody said that somebody was saying that he was invited, he refused to come to Ekiti State. I read it in one of the things people said, you know. But if he was invited, he refused to come to Ekiti State. He said, I am here, come and take me. If you want me to come, that's fine. Let them come and take him. There is no evidence to show that if they had taken him, that he was going to be violent against them, he was going to do anything. And having taken him to prison and moving him from prison to any place, is there still evidence that he's going to attack the police? One person, how many police can he attack? So I think it's important at this stage for his legal team to look at that particular, there are items of it, enforcement of his fundamental rights. Let the courts, let's believe that the courts can make pronouncements on the legality of any person being handcuffed.
So
I think it's very important.
About the bail bond, what are the factors, the preceding factors? What do they consider? What factors do they consider before they decide this is the bail bond that I'm going to request that they post?
Now, this is at the discretion of the courts. I will first commend the courts that I understood granted bail even orally. Many judges will not agree. They will say, file your motion. But you can see, like I said, it is the masses that made the judge to even agree to grant bail, even orally, on oral application.
You said the masses?
Yes, the threat of protest, the whole thing in the media, whether nationally and internationally. When you look at the pulse of the people, it becomes easier for you to know, to exercise proper discretion in what you're doing.
So why did they tell us that what happens in the court of public opinion doesn't necessarily affect what happens in the court proper?
There is no place where public opinion does not change policies. There is no place. Look at the Syrian uprising. If you look at every uprising, if you look at Kenya, if you look at South Africa, in the United States, same way. There is no place. Public opinion as well. If all Nigerians are united to say this is wrong, any government will run because it can bring down.
Except in the last presidential election. You remember what the judges said? They were lampooning those who went on social media, trying to impugn the integrity of the judges preceding that judgment.
Yes, they did. And as far as they were thinking that is not the majority, that is those that have access to the media. But they knew it affected them. And everybody knows that once you go to the public opinion and the public buys it and the public understands that this is wrong, there is no government who can stand public opinion anywhere in the world. No government anywhere, even the military government, have not been able to stand public opinion in many places. Is it a civilian government that will, or the one that called itself a democratic government that will stand public opinion? Look at how the former South African government left office. Look, it's just everywhere. So public opinion, that is why we must always ask Nigerians to be steadfast. Be steadfast. It is also public opinion that made Nigeria not to be worse than what it is today. If we had all gone to bed, if the media had gone to bed, everybody has gone, Nigeria will be worse than what you're seeing today.
So I want to ask you quickly, if you were to use this as a yardstick then, I don't know whether you consider it a fair yardstick though, to look at the state of human rights today in Nigeria, where would you say that we need to really put some work to improve our ratings on human rights?
Number one is that the government should be out to say, yes, we want to respect human rights. The agencies that are connected to individuals should also be up and doing. There should be punishment for infringement of human rights. Today, when you take the police to court for infringing your rights, even if judgment is given to you, nobody gives you anything. So the government should be ready. And I had advocated, time without number, that once your rights are infringed upon, whether by police, whether by EFCC, and I said lawyers should sue those police officers directly, if he's commissioner of police, if he's EFCC chairman, if he's IC, whoever, sue them directly too, apart from the organization they are representing. Because the rule is, once you are outside, not being according to the law does not protect you, even as IGP.
We're going to anchor at that point. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning on the occasion of the World Human Rights Day. Mr. Chukwuma Isiala, legal practitioner.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. And thank you to Nigerians for listening.
All right. So let's go on now for Business Morning. We'll be coming up on the hour.
Well, hello and welcome to another trading day right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Let's get to the top stories that set to agenda now. Starting with the oil market, we see oil prices have eased only slightly. Most of the gains are from the prior session. We've got that back, due to mounting geopolitical risk after the fall of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. And we see 0.4% down. That's for Brent, $71.82 a barrel. And the early Asian trade today, $68 smack on for WTI US crude, 0.5%. That's 0.5% down. We see both benchmarks there did climb more than 1% on Monday, but we're not seeing that momentum continue this week. So we'll keep an eye on this market. Now, for the FX market, yesterday, the Naira traded within the range of about 1,400 to 1,600 Naira. Then we see a drop there, 0.23% for the NFM window there, 1,538 Naira. That was a close from 1,535. So at this point, this is looking like maybe a new range, but we'll see if that trend holds. 0.66% gain for the NAFEX window, 1,542 Naira. I know we're celebrating that monster run we saw last week, so we're watching if it continues for this week. All right, to other stories now. For the first time, Nigeria is off the list of countries with trapped airline funds as the International Air Transport Association, that's IATA, reports $1.7 billion in blocked revenues globally as of October 2024 was down to about $1.8 billion in April. IATA confirms that Nigeria has resolved $831 million of trapped funds since June 2023, leaving only about $19 million awaiting central bank verification through commercial banks. While Nigeria shows improvement, 9 countries, including Pakistan, Bangladesh, Eritrea, account for about 83% of the industry's blocked funds, totaling $1.43 billion. IATA's Director General, Willie Walsh, urged governments to remove barriers, stressing the importance of smooth fund repatriation to sustain global aviation services. And to other matters now, Nigeria's value-added tax collection reached 1.78 trillion naira the third quarter of 2024, showing a 14.16% increase from 1.56 trillion in the second quarter, and that's according to the National Bureau of Statistics. However, the country's company income tax collection for the third quarter of 2024, that totaled about 1.77 trillion naira, representing a significant decrease of 28.2% from the 2.47 trillion naira collected in the previous quarter. The MBS reports that local CIT payments amounted to about 920 billion naira, while foreign CIT payments contributed 852 billion naira in the third quarter of 2024. To some company news now, Meccano Motors, in partnership with Shangan Automobiles, has formally unveiled 2 premium models from Shangan, the all-new CS95 and the X7 Plus. Both vehicles were introduced at the Meccano Motors showroom in Lagos shortly before the Shangan Festive Night 24. Take a listen.
The Meccano Motors Shangan showroom in Victoria Island, Lagos, buzzes with excitement as guests gather to celebrate an exclusive partnership between Meccano Motors and Shangan Automobiles. The evening promises the unveiling of 2 exceptional vehicles, the luxury all-new CS95 and the urban-friendly X7 Plus.
3, 2, 1.
With dramatic flair, the X7 Plus is first unveiled, showcasing a compact yet stylish frame that captivates the guests.
Turn around!
Moments later, the Shangan CS95 makes its entrance with its bold design, sleek lines, and luxurious leather interior. After the unveiling, the celebration shifts to the event hall where the Festive Night 24 continues. Executives from Meccano Motors and Shangan Automobiles share their vision for the vehicles.
When we launched Shangan just 2 short years ago as the official dealer, we had a bold vision. It was to redefine the automotive experience in Nigeria and to set new standards of excellence. In just 2 years, Shangan has risen to become a leader in the automotive market, a milestone we are incredibly proud of.
We are pleased to find a strong and like-minded partner in Meccano International Limited. We shall face up to the competition, continue to introduce globally recognized China models, including our depot new energy vehicles.
We currently have over 10 models in our lineup, and we've been managed to put thousands of cars on Nigerian roads over the 2 years. And we will always look forward to providing you with the best services and the best products that we have to offer.
For the brand, the Shangan CS95 and X7 Plus are not just cars, they are bold statements of style, performance, and practicality.
For the CS95, the all-new CS95 Plus, our target audience is executives and also people with large families because, like we said earlier, it's a 3-row, 7-seat SUV. The X7 is slightly smaller, so that's also perfect for families with small kids, and the smaller kids can sit at the back row, you know, leaving ample space for the family to travel together.
Mikano is definitely one that stands out. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for always taking good care of me. I say it all the time that Mikano is family.
The Changan Festive Night 24 is more than a launch. It's a celebration of automotive excellence.
And now to our first conversation. Let's get a check on commodities market and refining issues in Nigeria. We have Mr. Bismarck Ruwani, CEO, Financial Derivatives Company. Great to have you on the show. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so before we go deep into the commodities now, let's talk about refining at this point. So much ado about blending and refining oil. And, you know, we hear the NNPCL boss, Mr. Mele Kyari, saying blending is not illegal. How are you seeing it?
Well, to be honest with you, let's go back and understand. December every year, there's always queues. There's always anxiety as to whether there'll be enough petrol, and we don't know whether we'll be able to travel by road home for Christmas. This year is different because there is ample supply, there is consistent pricing, and there's quality guaranteed, thanks to the Dangote refinery. What is happening in the NNPC refinery, which claims to be producing 60,000 barrels a day? We do not know. Some people say it's old wine in new bottles. Some people say it's old wine in old bottles. But the truth is that we do not know whether it's blended and whether it's unblended. But like the saying goes in Chicago that says that if it doesn't matter whether it's a white cat or a black cat, as long as it can kill mouse, then it's a cat. Here, we do not know what is happening. We think that the refining, the refinery itself, or the blending plant, or a combination of both, appears initially to have been producing something. But today, we are not sure as to what they are producing. And the price they are offering is definitely higher than the market price. But again, NNPC has been around for ages. The truth is that, you know, except you reform that institution, even if you get the plants to start working, it won't take long before they get back to the same situation, because there is a management problem there rather than a production or a pricing problem. So, quite frankly, the good news is that the Dangote refinery, the modular refineries, and to some extent, even other sources are producing enough kerosene, jet fuel, enough diesel, and enough petrol. As of this morning, the price of petrol at MRS is 1065. As of this morning, the price of diesel is 1140. And it has been stable for some time. Dangote had announced a discount, bringing the price down to 970 at refinery gate. So of course, some middlemen and distributors are taking advantage of that process. But generally speaking, we think that it's the best development at this point in time in December has been that we now have ample supply, quality supply, and at a consistent price.
I'm definitely hoping we break that December tradition where we see queues everywhere. I'm definitely watching out, but we don't see any queues at this point, waiting for the Yuletide season, you know, to come through. But, you know, looking at the issue of, you know, blending and refining.
No, but Dangote refinery has assured the market that there will be supply and that the quality is guaranteed, and went further to announce a price drop. But that price drop is still being implemented as it were. So this is a different thing. But you must bear in mind also that inflation numbers are coming out this weekend. They are more likely than not going to be higher because of the fuel price hike in November. But we think that going on forward with consistent supply and the harvest and some kind of interim stability in the foreign exchange market, we might begin to see inflation begin to decline in December and January. But that's we touch wood, we believe that that is possible, but right now it's too close to call.
Which one is a cheaper process for producing petroleum products, blending or refining?
I didn't get the question.
Which is a cheaper method of producing petroleum products, blending or refining?
Oh, definitely refining. Blending is like, in other words, a form of adulteration as it is blending. But refining, the refining process is almost as old as mankind. It's a fractional distillation process. You heat up crude and then you collect it at different temperatures, all the way from methane at the top and all the way to diesel and bitumen at the bottom. So right now, and Nigeria has had refineries way back over 40, 50, 60 years. The fact that we couldn't maintain them, the fact that we had a situation where importing refined products and scamming the subsidy process had brought us to our knees. Right now, we have vested interest both in the importation of products, the distribution of products, the pricing of products, and the smuggling of products across the country. It will take time before these interest groups are dismantled. But the fact that we have a 650,000 barrel refinery per day refinery, the largest single train refinery in the world in Nigeria, it means that there's hope. But if we have to manage it properly, that's the thing. And I think the fact that it's a private sector owned institution, the fact that they raise money internationally and domestically means that the refinery is going to be under the greatest financial scrutiny the world has ever seen, and that's a good thing for Nigeria.
All right, let's look at some recent data from the MBS there, foreign statistics, that's foreign trade statistics. We see China remains Nigeria's highest trading partner, but looking deeper into the report, we see that on the import side, total import from Malta, that rose about 766 billion naira in the third quarter of 2024. After we got reports that Nigeria's import from Malta rose from 0 to about 1 trillion in 2023. What is this data telling us? We know all about that drama about blending in Malta.
Yeah. Again, you see, I take this data with a pinch of salt in the sense that I don't know what Nigeria imports from Malta, but for Malta to become a major trading partner of Nigeria means it calls for greater scrutiny. And we have to analyze that properly, whether it's blending or unblended or what have you. I do know that all of a sudden, Malta cannot be a major trading partner of Nigeria all within 1 year. So something is going on there which needs additional scrutiny, like I said. But again, coming back to the real deal, we said I heard you saying just now that the exchange rate appreciated in the NAFEM and NAFEX. But what happened in the parallel market was simply this. In the last couple of days, the Naira appreciated from 1770 at the peak at that point and came all the way to 1580 or something like that. Now, yesterday, it now depreciated again because the Naira was oversold, right? And therefore, we now began to see it's now gotten to 1640 and 16. As we speak this morning, the market is in stasis. That is, nobody is buying, nobody is selling. What are the good things? The good news, as you said, IATA blocked funds are out. We are no longer a blocked fund country. With the new matching system, which calls for transparency on the Bloomberg terminal. But these are tangential to the fact that we need oil proceeds. We need to have a stronger balance of trade. And the great news this morning is that cocoa is trading at over $10,000. And we are projected to do 250,000 tons this year. So from roughly $600 to $700 million 2 years ago, we are now aiming to get about almost $2 to $3 billion. So basically, people in Osun Ekiti, Ondo State, should be actually living a life right now because they're making more money than any other part of the country. So that's good news. The exchange rate has helped us to make our exports cheaper, and that is translating into higher domestic revenue in dollars, and also is translating into higher output and activity in the agricultural producing areas. think that's one thing to note.
Looking at the strengthening of the naira from last week, and also coming into this week, we're still at 1,005 level at this time. When do you see this translating into lower pump price for PMS?
Well, the lower global oil price, right, gets to a point. Right now, I think it's about 70, 71, but we think it could go down to as low as 65. But anything below 65 makes shale production, makes fracking unprofitable. And also, so there's a coagulation of interests, right? One, Saudi Arabia does not need price of oil to fall below a particular level. Saudi Arabia is in the mix now because of Trump coming in. You see what's happening in Syria, right? So Iran is under pressure to ensure that it keeps its production levels at market expectations. We also know that the United States also, as a major producer and consumer, the Saudi Arabians, the Iranians, and the Qataris, everybody, we all have an interest. So I think that we will have a global consensus of price of anything between 65 and 70. At that price, though, and if our production does not increase sharply, then Nigeria comes under fiscal pressure because we are borrowing. We just raised $2 billion. We're going to the market again to raise additional money at very high interest rates, 10.5, 10.7. Now, if that happens, our exports to debt service to export ratio will increase sharply, and that will leave very little money on the table for us to support the naira in the market. So it's a catch-22 situation. The lower price of oil means that PMS price will go down, but at the same time, it means that Nigeria's export revenues and monies used to support the currency will not be that buoyant. If the currency weakens, then inflation comes back in. So we are between a rock and a hard place here. But generally speaking, 2025 should be better than 2024. At this time last year, inflation was at 28%. At this time last year, the naira was trading at about 1,110. So the process of naira volatility had started, and the process of inflation, spiraling inflation had started at this time last year. So the base year effects has begun to play out, as you can find, as you will see when the inflation numbers come out. Ordinarily, we would have said inflation will go up to 36, 37%, but it's not going to go that high because the base, by this time last year, inflation had already started trending upwards, and the exchange rate had already started suffering. That's the truth of the matter.
All right, all eyes now watching out for that November inflation report. But thank you so much, Mr. Bezos Kurani. Always great having your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I'll take a break now. When we come back, more conversations about how to industrialize Nigeria and Africa. That's in a moment. Just stay with us. Welcome back. Well, Africa is on the cusp of an industrial renaissance with ambitious goals like Agenda 2063, setting the stage for transformative change. However, realizing these aspirations required meticulous planning and execution. Let's look at the critical role of project management in driving Africa's industrialization and also for Nigeria with sustainable economic growth. Joining us for this conversation, we have George Samanis, a Managing Director, Sub-Saharan Africa Project Management Institute. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the show, and good morning to the viewers as well.
Fantastic. So I'm sure you've been following the conversation about Nigeria's refining agenda at this point. So talk to me about the importance of project management. How essential is it for Africa's industrialization efforts, and how can it help address challenges facing countries like Nigeria in achieving sustainable economic growth?
Yeah, it's critical, is the short answer. But just for context, especially for the viewers, PMI Project Management Institute, we're a world leader in providing project management standards, training, and certification. We work with governments, organizations, and individuals all around the world to help to improve this skill or this discipline of execution, which is what project management is. So, for instance, if you have a vision, or if a country has a vision or strategy, how do they execute it in the best way possible to ensure that the results that you want to see are the results that you get. In other words, ensure that you get the value worth the effort and the expense that you put into it. So really fundamentally, we're all about providing the skills to get you from A to Z in the best way possible. And of course, we also serve the youth because for PMI, especially in Africa, the youth are incredibly important. And so what we do is we provide the foundational skills to be able to prepare the youth for the future. Coming back to your question about why project management is essential for Africa's industrialization. Really, industrialization, as you've been talking about in this segment and the previous one, is absolutely, really it's a way forward for continents and countries to develop. I don't think I've seen any country achieve sustained prosperity without industrialization. And when you take a step back and look at what is industrialization, really in simple terms, it's essentially a portfolio of mega projects. And so you need the technical expertise, you need the project management expertise to enable the execution of these projects or to enable the successful delivery of your industrialization plan. In other words, project management is the framework that turns the potential of an industrialization plan into the reality of that. On the flip side, the risk of not having excellent project managers in your industrialization plan is that there may be misalignment in terms of what the plan is and what is actually delivered, inefficiencies, a lot of waste, stall progress, and this really can undermine your industrialization efforts as an economy. So yes, project management is absolutely essential for Africa, and in the case of Nigeria, of course, Nigeria as well.
And what would you say? What would you say about those that are charged with the responsibility of delivering projects? In countries like Nigeria, to make most of these projects more efficient. What do you think is the skill they need to learn? At this time, because most of these countries have so many agendas at this point. We're trying to get Nigeria to a $1 trillion economy. How can we make this work?
Yeah, that's the beauty of project management. People call project managers the silent superheroes because the work they do is incredibly important. And there's a lot in their skills portfolio. Some of those skills are stakeholder management. You gave some examples of some of the challenges. And those involve dealing with different people in different parts of an organization or in different parts of the ecosystem. Project managers should have the ability to deal with extremely senior stakeholders, whether you're talking about country leaders or whether you're talking about people within the same realm of responsibility or even subordinate. So there's definitely a skill set around stakeholder management or people management and influencing, because it's the influencing that helps to drive the right decisions, which leads to the right actions. And that's just one of many skills. Other skills, of course, they're technical skills that every project manager should have. And of course, there's a group of skills of what we call business acumen within our learning and development framework. Business acumen really looks at, as a project manager, do you understand why you are delivering the project that you're delivering? Do you have the context? If you're responsible for delivering this bridge or this oil refinery, do you understand the importance of delivering it on time, on budget, or within scope? Do you understand the value that you expect to deliver? And what is the impact on the community or the economy if you do not deliver that value? So it's all these skills, the technical skills, the soft skills or the people skills, and as well the people management or rather the business acumen that you need. So there's a whole portfolio of skills which we help governments and corporations and of course individuals as well to learn in order to deliver successful projects.
And give me some, examples of countries in Africa that have been able to, apply project management skills to actually deliver projects on time and projects that actually have positive externalities, at this point.
Well, there are many, many projects, but I'll give you an example of something that's happening right now, right there in Lagos. So we partnered, we PMI have partnered with the Lagos State government, who are really looking ahead in terms of, okay, how can they take their project management capability to the next level. So we're working with the Lagos State government. They're upskilling upwards of 500 people within the Lagos State government every year. This is a new initiative that just started. And the whole point is to be able to say, right from the senior leadership all the way down to people on the ground, who needs to have what level of project management knowledge and expertise, and how does that influence the portfolio of projects that Lagos State government needs to achieve. Of course, when you look at Lagos State government, we're talking about the Themes Plus agenda, looking at healthcare, looking at transport, and so they're taking this extremely seriously because, of course, the whole objective is to be able to successfully deliver projects for Lagosians. Outside of Lagos, outside of Nigeria, we're working with organizations like the Ministry of Infrastructure and Public Works in Nigeria, in South Africa, And in South Africa, the government there, they partnered with PMI so that actually anybody who's working with the South African government in a project capability should be registered with a regulator called SACP-CMP. That's a South African Council for Construction and Project Management. And their registration process and standards are based on PMI standards. So we support them to ensure that actually everybody who is working with the South African government from an infrastructure perspective with the ministry has been registered and has the right standards. And there are many examples that I can give. And of course, the whole objective is to make sure that actually, if you have the right skill set within your ministry or government or company across the entire organization, then there's a higher likelihood of project success.
Right, and we need a lot of project success right now, especially in Nigeria. But so much to unpack there. Thank you so much for coming on, Mr. George Asamani. He's an MD, Sub-Saharan Africa Project Management Institute. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
All righty then. So we'll give you a check on what's playing out later on at 1 p.m., how the markets are trading, local markets, and for most of the global markets that we track, we're there, and we'll have a surprise for you also there. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ladi Williams from me right here. I hand things over to the Sunrise Daily team.
All right, so yes, indeed. Thank you, Ladi. Let's follow up on this. Mr. Adeliriti, you remember the case, alleged defamation case. He's arrived back at the court in Ado-Ekiti this morning. So some of those proceedings are going to go on. So let's have a look at that. At the moment, when he arrived at the premises of the court in the police security van in company of officials of the correctional center. Now, counsels to the defendants as well as the plaintiff had been waiting for him to arrive in court. So that he did, and don't forget that the magistrate, Abayomi Adeosun, had ordered that he be remanded in the correctional center while the case adjourned till December 10, which is today, to hear the bail application. But Mr. Rotimi was granted bail, as we also did know, 50 million naira, and surety in like sum. He says that they must be residents in Ekiti State with a landed property, including travel passports of the defendant, which they say should be submitted in court. So those proceedings will be going on. Some parts of it will go on to hear his bail application, after which they will take the very next steps. So appears to be inching and moving in some fashion. But yes, thereafter, remember the adjourned date of January. So I guess we'll keep tabs on that one and see how all of that eventually plays out. So those are images happening this morning as we speak in Ado-Ekiti at the Federal High Court with the case, which was also a fresh 12-count charge, which was filed by the Inspector General of Police against Mr. Farotimi. All right, so we'll bring you more updates on that as we have it. So coming up next, we'll be turning attention to some business and economy-related matters.
It's an investigative hearing by the Senate Committee on Finance on the remittance of internally generated revenue, fiscal accountability, and the overall state of the country's financial management system.
We also want to find out about the entire revenue generation in Nigeria.
The Accountant General of the Federation proceeded to present a summary of revenues up to September 2024, where general dissatisfaction over the payment system was observed.
September 2024, totaling 2.7 trillion. Then the operating surplus from the GOEs amounting to 2.3 trillion. Then the MDA's IGR up to September amounted to 344 billion.
There are general complaints everywhere that there are delays for payment because payment is now over-centralized.
Our worry is this. This is December. And as we speak, we have met with several agencies. The performance level of the 2024 budget is nothing to write home about. And everybody is that is why the expectation of 2024 budget to announce that is not interesting.
The apparent discrepancies observed by the lawmakers drew further criticisms.
What is delaying the release of the funds? There are two things I want to hear. Is there no funds available? Or there are queries to those things that have been uploaded?
I can say it's combination of all that you have said. Sometimes when the warrants are released, fund may not be in the account, but that is always addressed as early as possible.
Concerns were also raised about low stamp duty revenues as lawmakers attributed the shortfall to poor budget performance.
Total IGR 60.7 million and under stamp duty 3.8 million. Then 2024 as a date, total 93.2 million.
The committee thereafter resolved to summon other critical agencies, including NNPCL and NATI, threatening zero allocation for non-compliant agencies. Separately, lawmakers from the Southeast had a closed-door meeting to discuss the tax reform bills. Aside supporting the bills, the senators are calling for wider consultations.
As much as we are not against the bill, that we would also have to do further consultations with our different constituencies and the state governments. We think that the result of those consultations will lead to a better bill being passed and a much more equitable framework.
Now, the next few weeks are undoubtedly crucial in determining whether or not the push for wider consultations can coexist with the urgency for legislative action. Gloria Umezuki, Channels Television News.
All right, so several questions about the performance of the 2024 budget as they try to defend the 2025, which who knows when that will be presented. They're supposed to also get that up and running, but we'll hope to get some at least perspectives on that subject matter with Dr. Vincent Wani, as you may have seen in that welcoming slide, who himself is an economist and investment specialist. So he should be joining us soon, rather than later, I reckon, and then to shed his own perspective on this matter, because there's been several questions as to, do we really get our budget perform optimally? And to what degree can we say it is optimal in terms of release and allocation of those funds in time? And what do we do with it because of the budget cycle that we have now, which is different from what they say we operated before? So those are the issues that we will be going through with him when we do have him on board in just a moment, I reckon. So it's going to be coming up soon, so don't go away. Welcome back. So, Dr. Wani, good morning and thank you for joining us on the program today. So, the lawmakers asking questions of the performance of the 2024 budget. In fact, listen to them, it just painted a bleak picture, albeit they did say they were not impressed with the performance of the 2024 budget, which in itself raises a lot of questions. But let's get your perspective on what they had said. Was this something that you had seen over time or what?
All right, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, yeah, looking at the 2025 budget proposal submitted by the executive, there are some few highlights. One, the budget number. You know, the total budget is about 49 trillion, which is on a nominal level a big from what we used to have. Last year it was 27 trillion naira. You know, and I was looking at it, the actual value of this. You know, this current budget, we're going to land at about 26 billion USD. You know, but when you compare this number to what we had in 2023, then I think our total budget was about 23 trillion. You know, the actual value, you know, when you compare that with our exchange rate, as at then was about 65 billion US dollars. So in terms of actual value of the budget, you know, compared to what we used to have 2 years, 3 years ago, the budget we have this year in the nominal value is quite small. You know, how much this will help us achieve our objective as a country remains to be seen. Then the budget proposal in terms of the key numbers, you know, the key consideration, looks a bit optimistic as well. You know, the benchmark for oil production, for instance, is above 2 million barrels per day. I think 2.06 million barrels per day, which is on the high side. Looking at our production over the last 1 year, on the average, it's about 1.5 million per day. So this budget is a bit optimistic at about 25% more optimistic on what we'll be producing. You know, if you keep that aside, you also look at exchange rate, which is the big monster in the house. You know, exchange rate have been proposed to be around 1,400 naira per dollar. As of today, is 1,630. You know, and the average we've seen over the last few months also suggests that our budget benchmark for exchange rate is on the optimistic side. You know, and we can go on and on and on. You can go on and on and on, and you'll find out that if you compare inflation numbers or inflation target, that's also the same thing. We've targeted far less than what we currently have, or the average we've seen over the last few months. You know, so it is always good that when you plan not by being optimistic. You have to be prudent, you know, which means you're going to choose the worst case scenario. This budget is proposed on the best case scenario, you know, which is one of my first concern. It's one of my first concern, suggesting that the reform we've seen, if over the last 1 year, we've seen the exchange rate grow by about 300%. We've seen inflation grow by about 70-something%. You know, from the low 20s we saw about this time last year. It means that the gains we've seen from the reforms, especially removal of subsidy in petroleum products, the removal of subsidy in power, that is electricity tariff, and other key fiscal reforms that we've seen the government embarked upon, they are yet to really deliver the expected result, at least in enhancing government revenue. And more worrisome to me is also the fact that I looked at the number of CIT yesterday, that is, I think Q2 CIT, company income tax, and this is a revenue that we also need to depend on. And the drop is about 29% quarter to quarter. You know, 29% quarter to quarter in terms of CIT, which means the receipt from tax, even post tax reform that we are currently going on, also show that the revenue from tax will be a bit soft. You know, so all of this shows that government really need to probably think out of the box, because if we don't do that, our dependence on borrowing will even be stronger in 2025. You know, first quarter 2024, we've seen debt grew by 25%. 2023, our total debt grew by 110%. You know, and at this rate, we may be hitting debt to GDP ratio of 100% by 2030. So, and not only that, our revenue to debt ratio will also be really weighing down on our physical capacity as a country. So all of this really need to be tidied and fixed or addressed in this budget. How that will be done are some details that probably need to be discussed or explained.
Okay, well, I do not know if you saw the analysis that your colleague as well, because he's an economist, Dr. Bismarck Rawani, did for us on the news at 10 yesterday, showing that, you know, there is room, there is reason for us to be optimistic as to what 2025 will bring economically, even though he still says that we have to approach that optimism with caution, and that we also have to find ways for this to trickle down, because from the major indicators, according to him, from what, you know, the federal government has been saying so far, it does appear that there is, the beginning of light at the end of this dark tunnel we found ourselves in. But even at that, I mean, he was still, quite cautious about it. From your own analysis, from what we have seen so far this year, you spoke about how the gains of the removal of subsidies is yet to be felt. However, if you look at some other indicators, for instance, only recently, this December, we saw the Naira begin to rally against the dollar. Do you think that there is any reason to be hopeful for 2025, the budget aside?
All right, thank you for the question. You know, unfortunately, I did not have the privilege to look at my colleague's analysis on the budget. That is Bismarck Rawani at News at 10 yesterday. But having said that, optimism is always very important. Hope. You know, in the absence of hope, you have a very big problem. So at the level as a citizen, as a nationalist, we need to be optimistic. You know, moreover, 2025 is a year that the reforms and the hordes of reforms we've seen in 2024, 2023 is supposed to crystallize for the good of it. So to that extent, I am optimistic. But looking at the data, I'm just saying that if you are planning, you know, and even accountants will tell you that there is a principle in accounting called the prudence principle. You know, you assume the worst when you are planning. You assume the worst when you are planning. That is just what I'm trying to say. That if the average exchange rate over the last 3 or 6 months have been 1,600 per dollar, as of today, it is 1,630. But budgeting or planning at 1,400 is a bit optimistic for me. You know, our major revenue sources, about 70% is still from sale of crude oil. Last year, or over the last 1 year, our average daily production at 1,500. Of course, we've ramped this number up a bit. You know, I was thinking that average is supposed to be what we have to leverage on, instead of just putting our target at 2,060,000 barrels daily. Moreover, we've not really seen so much we have done around fixing the challenges that militate against production of oil in Nigeria, apart from the fact that we now have local refinery that will be picking this crude and refining here. You know, so these are some of the concerns. But for the fact that we have really seen the worst in 2024 and 2023, and as a citizen, as a nationalist, I'm optimistic. Of course, I'm quite optimistic, but I'm just trying to say that the budget, as we have seen, will likely lead us to a stronger deficit budgeting, which will lead to borrowing more. And we've seen that our numbers around revenue to debt payment is on the high side, and we don't want this to continue.
I think I must point out that Mr. Rawane wasn't analyzing the budget. He was doing a year-end review, just how the year has been, projecting into the new year, what 2025 will hold. So it wasn't a budget analysis, so to speak. But I don't know whether you would like to give your own, verdict on how 2024 has been, economically speaking. I know the cost of living has, a lot of people will say they have never felt anything quite like how this cost of living has been. We've seen inflation, at heights that we have not seen before in the history of this country. However, we've also been seeing it begin to taper down somewhat. So some people are wondering whether that tapering down is something that is sustainable. Do you think that we have now put in some things that that are in place for us to begin to see inflation begin to taper down, particularly the major component of it, let's say the most important component as far as a lot of Nigerians are concerned, the food component of it, which we have seen, go up in heights that we haven't seen in a long time.
All right, thank you for the question. The first aspect of the question just it asked me to review the economy in 2024. I'm not going to go around the whole lamentation, how citizens, how businesses felt in 2024. The authorities know, the stakeholders, the economy, the players in the economy, business leaders, they know that 2024 is unprecedented. Of course, we've seen inflation at up to 56% in the past. So inflation at 34, 33, we have it now, is not unprecedented, but it is quite high. The citizens and businesses were hit from all directions. The increase of petroleum products, especially fuel, from what it is to what it is now, over 1,000 nationwide. That is about 300% increase on that front. The same thing with exchange rate, from 400, 500 to 1,700 at some point. These are, in fact, some other small channels through which this cost were exacerbated. Even the importation of custom duty at the same rate also increased by over 100%. The cost of clearing a 20 container or 40-foot container, all this, even going to the bank to get our money in cash. We've seen Nigerians paying 2%, for POS to get cash to even do transactions, because you get into a bank ATM or bank house, you are not going to get cash. So you have to pay 2%. If you need 10,000 naira, you need to give 200 naira. And when I was in the Lagos Trade Fair this year, Lagos International Trade Fair, everybody were complaining because you buy something at 500 naira, 5,000 naira, you're going to pay 5,002 or 5,001 because of the POS charges. So Nigerians were beating left and right, and including the businesses. And we've seen that this year alone, about 12 multinationals have either left the country, downsized, or even shut down some of the lines of operation. Over the last 5 years, we've seen about 79 companies also visited Nigerians, and these are countries that have been here for a long time. But like I said before, I believe that we have seen the worst. The minimum is that even if things doesn't improve on the physical or monetary side, the good news is that Nigerians and businesses are now used to the realities. So 2025, we must or may have adjusted to the realities, and it will become normal.
I know you use that advisedly, but nobody wants to get used to this kind of scenario. They want better. But can you connect the dots a little further in terms of the proposals or the 2025 budget itself, and how this is expected to perhaps impact the cost of living positively?
What will impact the cost of living very quickly, like your colleague said, is food. food, supply of food, push food out to the market. And where will this food come from? From the farm. The imported foods will continue to be costly because of the exchange rate situation. But the food have to get out from the farm gate to the market, and from market to people's kitchen and pot and dining tables. Unfortunately, the insecurity or the security situation that continue to drive Nigerians out of their farmland is yet to be seriously addressed. The kidnapping, the whatever type of classes you want to give security issues. So security is a big problem. I'm not sure if that has been fixed. About 25% of farmers did not go back to farm in 2024 during the farming season. And the harvest season is ongoing, started since July or August. We'll soon go back to farm in 2025. So I think that this is a window for government to just say, okay, that the low-hanging fruit is to bring down the cost of living by addressing food. Right. I don't know how they're going to do what they will do to energy. And this energy is about electricity and fuel. We want to see Nigerians being able to address food and cost of energy. These are the two sources of cost of living crisis that we are passing through. But the beginning is just to address the food challenges, and security need to be fixed.
All right, Dr. Vincent Wani, economist and investment specialist, thank you for your perspectives this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we understand that the court has refused to grant former governor of Kogi State, Yaya Bello's bail application. And that's Justice Miriam and any of the Federal High Court refusing to grant that bail application filed by the former governor, saying it was filed prematurely. So remember that he's standing trial along with two others in an alleged 110 billion naira money laundering charge brought against him by the EFCC. So they argued back and forth, and that was that decision. So we're keeping tabs on that one, as you can also see there. So she did actually say that, well, that's actually the defendant's lawyer, Mr. J.B. Daudu, told the court that he had submitted sufficient facts to grant the bail, and he urged the court to exercise its judicial discretion. In fact, let me use the word they used. He urged the court to exercise its discretion judicially and judiciously to grant the bail. But we're following that closely for you, and so we'll give you more information as we get them.
Okay, well, so the justice has ruled. She said the instant application for bail showed that it was filed on the 22nd of November. It showed that it was filed several days after the first defendant was taken into custody. And I think she didn't grant his own bail, that's a former governor, but she granted that of the second defendant, Mr. Umar Oricha, who was granted bail in the sum of 300 million naira. And with two sureties and like some. So, as Chimney did say, we will be following that case for you, and we'll keep you posted as matters unfold in the High Court. So
again, thank you as always for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf. Have a wonderful day.